Great to have you here today, and thanks for coming in. I mean, we've been on quite a journey the last couple of years, and it's been educational for me personally and for the business, which we will delve into. But thank you so much for your support and your help with getting our B Corp accreditation, and it's great to see you've worn your gold in celebratory fashion for us. Because as of today, we have got our B Corp accreditation, and I think 72 hours ago. So it's been a really good journey and a really insightful journey, which we can come on to. But just starting off, what would be really useful is just to get a bit of background around kind of what you do at True Horizon and how you help businesses like ourselves through getting B Corp accredited.
Sounds good. Firstly, congratulations, because you guys and all the team put in a lot of hard work. So yeah, really well done, and I hope you've got some good celebrations planned. Yeah, so B Corp is all about how businesses can use their influence to have a positive impact. So I think most of us would agree that society on the whole has some interesting social and environmental challenges. And yeah, business has an opportunity to tackle some of those. And that's what B Corp is trying to get at. And one of the biggest things, which you're well aware of, is actually changing your articles of association to say that you not only exist for profit, but to have a positive impact on people and planet as well. It's still a relatively new movement. So we are now just over 2,300 B Corps in the UK, and just over 9,000 globally. So for those of us in the space, it feels like everybody knows about it and everybody's on board. They're not. It's still a really small percentage of businesses who are doing it. I think particularly in the construction industry, as you found as well, it's still a very new certification.
Yeah, and that's why it's really appealing for us to go on the journey, really, because, like you say, it's a USP in many different forms for employer branding, for client branding, and generally for doing good. And I think when we got our certificate through, I think I asked ChatGPT originally, but then I kind of went on to B Corp and certified it and said wondered how many sort of similar surveying businesses or construction consulting businesses were B Corp accredited. I think there's only 8. I might be wrong because it's changing all the time, but to be one of 8 in the UK is really something we should be proud of. So in terms of other business, just to sort of give a bit of a landscape on kind of other businesses, or is there any trends that you see in terms of who goes for B Corp, business size or industry specific? Where is it uptaking quite? Where's the uptake focused on?
For me personally, I'm seeing a lot in professional services, and I think that is to be a part of that B Corp community. If you want to work with aligned businesses who share values, it's a really good way to sort of do that. But also food and drink, and I think again there's a much more awareness on the consumer side about where our food is coming from, its nutrition, how far it's traveled, all of these things that we're becoming much more aware of. Supermarket shelves potentially not having everything that we want all year round is making people kind of ask more questions. So that's a really big industry. But interestingly, certainly from an environmental perspective, construction and the built environment have a really big impact from an emissions perspective. Like, buildings are where a lot of our emissions are coming from. So if we really want to hit these sort of UK net zero targets, we need more of the construction industry on board. We need people to have the knowledge and to share that knowledge so we can sort of get there. But certainly from the social side as well, there's a lot of people employed in buildings and across the construction industry. So how we treat those people and how we look after everyone, particularly in cost of living crisis, we're all talking about it. That's what's quite nice about the B Corp certification, that you're looking at the environment and the social at the same time as well.
I imagine for food and drink companies it's actually quite hard because fortunately for a professional services business or consulting business, your supply chain isn't too far detached from you. But for companies that are sourcing products overseas and packaging and raw materials and plants or whatever the products are, that knowing that supply chain, that transparency in the supply chain can be quite challenging.
Incredibly so.
But you do see, I notice it more and more in supermarkets now, you see the B Corp logo on products, and it is kind of like, yeah, I'll buy that, why not? Yeah.
It gives you a bit of a, you've looked, the likes of Tony's Chocolonely, I think Waitrose do a section in there where they highlight some of those B Corp brands. So yeah, I think the awareness of it is definitely growing.
That's good. And this month, March, we're filming this in, so that's March is B Corp Month.
Yep.
And do you want to just sort of give us a little synopsis of what that means?
So one of the biggest benefits I think about B Corp is its community and people really getting on board. You will really start to see that now, having been certified. You will start to connect. There's lots of events that happen, but B Corp Month is every March, and it's about, they'll have a different theme every year, and this year it's Gen B, and it's talking about all these businesses who are using their organisation as a force for good. And the idea is to raise awareness. You know, we talked about some of the numbers and how many B Corps there are currently in the UK and globally. Still really small, and we need more people on board. We need everybody kind of doing their bit and moving forward if we want to tackle some of these challenges.
And we were having a chat off camera before we started that obviously there are a few high-profile companies or large corporate companies, consumer goods companies that have potentially not renewing their B Corp, and there's been a few challenges as to whether businesses that have achieved it, speaking openly, Nespresso, Brewdog, etc., that have previously had B Corp accreditation, but they're not being renewed, or they've been removed. Let's say, what's the kind of word on the grapevine around those, and what the meaning behind that?
I think what's really important to remember is that no certification is perfect. It's a tool. It's a weapon in your arsenal to help you be better. And as I mentioned, B Corp itself takes a very holistic view of an organisation. But it doesn't mean that it's perfect. It doesn't mean you're always going to agree with all of the decisions that are made. I think they're really important. Well, two really important things. One is, recognise where it adds value to your business. And absolutely, if you either think it won't, or at a certain point it did and now it doesn't, then absolutely, don't stick with it. There's so many other ways to show sort of positive impact and ethical businesses, but also to be respectful of people who've gone through the process, because it is a lot of hard work. I think I've been through about over 50 now, so I worked with over 50 organizations to go through this process. It's a lot. The evidence you've got to show that, it's not a tick box exercise. So done well, it's, really helping you to become a better business. And it's a platform to keep you moving forward. You write your impact reports, you keep moving forward, you want to keep increasing that score. So I think there's a balance really of, yes, as long as it adds value, keep it going, but also have that respect if you decide that it's no longer for you, that people have worked really, really hard to get there.
And I think, speaking openly, I mean, from a business owner's perspective, I was surprised at the length of, the amount of work that we needed to put in. I mean, it's been an 18-month journey for us, roughly, probably a little bit longer, since actually committing to wanting to become a B Corp accredited business through to getting our certification. And obviously we had our ups and downs during that process, where it was realized once we applied that obviously we were in the wrong category, if you like. I think we were architecture and design originally, and now we've moved over to consulting based category, which made we had to resubmit loads of paperwork. But I was genuinely surprised, and it's quite, although it's a lot of hard work, and it kind of makes you feel that it's because it's so thorough and it covers all bases, that you actually, it's more than just a logo of saying, oh, I'm a B Corp. It actually means something, because you actually have to fundamentally change things in your business to get this accreditation. And in terms of the accreditation, obviously it's based around your impact score. What are the key headings in the impact score?
Yeah, so there's 5 sections within your B impact assessment. You've got your governance, so how you're sort of putting policies in place to really underpin what you're doing as an organisation. You've got your workers section, so how you look after your employees, whether that's benefits or living wage payments. You've got your community, so that's your sort of more social impact, any charity work, volunteer days, things like that. You've got environment, which is, how you, and again, we've spoken about this, the construction industry has big environmental impact, and you had what was called an impact business model in there, where you're working with organisations to really amplify that impact. And then you've got your customers, so how you're kind of allowing them to feedback or complaint mechanisms or guarantees to make sure that your customers are getting the best from you as well.
Yeah, so it's fully holistic, basically, isn't it? And I think the nice thing for us is that we actually scored quite highly in our. I'd hate to, like you say, I agree with you. I hate the term workers, employees, team. I think we have actually a ban that I don't like to call anyone employees of the business. They're all team members. But we scored particularly high in the workers section. And that's great for us because obviously we are a people business. Our product is our people. So our surveyors are the people that we need to train and look after and retain that talent and really build on that talent. And if we've got a good solid basis of our team, we are going to grow and be a really strong business. So it's really nice to see that majority of our points came in that section. And it's in terms of the other sections, obviously they're all important as well, but because we are an SME, I suppose, by category, that the governance piece is quite easy to manage in terms of we can keep the structure flat. We like to have I like to scale the business, and I want to keep scaling it with a flat structure. So we're having as little governance as possible, and then obviously the customers and environment and the other pieces are also really important. But it's that workers piece and just being able to offer the best package and I suppose lifestyle for our team members, and I think that's really what we're about at HORDE. And as much as B Corp is so many things for us, I think the most prominent piece is an employer branding thing, because we want to attract the next generation of people, which are the Gen Z, or I don't know what the term is for the next generation coming through, but those people are fundamentally have a different mindset to people that are 30 and above, and my age and above, and it's being able to attract that talent when the talent pool in our industry is getting smaller and smaller, and they're less worried about, let's say, monetary as a 90% of their priority. It's much more balanced around ethical employer, and the positioning of the brand. So that's really important for us. And I assume you're seeing similar things in professional services business you're working with.
100%. And sort of anecdotally, because I like to sort of follow up with clients that I've worked with to say, how are you finding it? Are you finding you're winning new work or attracting the right kinds of people? And they've certainly said, they said even when they've not been advertising for jobs, they've had local people ring up and say, we see you're a B Corp. Can you let us know when stuff comes up? Because they kind of recognise that means they're going to be looked after. And it is really important.
Yeah. And I think what I didn't realise until obviously we've obtained our B Corp is that there is a whole beehive that all of the team members can access. They can get access to events, they can get access to the directory, and there's so many other perks in there for them as well. So it's not just you get it and the directors or whatever can get access. It's a full community.
Yeah.
I think that's really strong.
There's the community is honestly, off the back of getting certified, is absolutely fantastic. And being able to connect with other organizations who have similar values, that sometimes it's that you work with them or collaborate with them. It's a really nice community. And as you say, that the beehive, and that's global as well. That's not just UK. You can connect with businesses who are B Corps globally. So, that over 9,000 figure number. And quite often on there's B Corps kind of offering deals for other B Corps or kind of looking to work with other B Corps. So it is a really great community that comes off the back of it. It's really lovely to see that happening. And I think it encourages, because we all know that there's challenges trying to balance, running a business and being sustainable and ethical. So having a group of organizations who know what you're going through and what you went through to get certified is really, really beneficial.
And I think even over, since we can come on to our journey in a bit more detail, but I think even since being on that, and it has obviously, the uptake's growing and growing. I have seen some of our core clients and partners get the B Corp logo, and I've seen them announce it. And it's now really nice to be sat in that pool of clients and people that we're working with to say, actually, no, we're with you now. We're in that B Corp space. And I think that going back to our industry specific issues, is that, like you say, the built environment has a massive part to play in being able for the UK to achieve those net zero goals, and however achievable or unachievable you think they are, that the key focus needs to be on making it cleaner, easier, and more sustainable to develop and construct and maintain assets, because that's the discrepancy in our industry, is that regulations are being there's more and more regulations coming in for fire safety off the back of Grenfell and energy efficiency, and it's making it harder and harder to build cost effectively. So you have this massive continuous battle with clients for them to understand, okay, well, what's the cost offset of developing sustainable homes or the sustainable commercial property, and is there much of a demand out there for that end product? Because it has to almost charge a premium, or it has to be a premium rent, a premium sale price, for them to understand that investment's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I think that mentality shift is starting to come, and I think it's only going to get stronger and stronger.
Yeah, and I think, for as long as it's cheaper to demolish things and start again, of course, from a purely financial perspective, you can understand why people don't go down that route. But, especially in the UK, we've got a lot of old building stock that we need to be able to sort of retrofit and refurbish and kind of get it up to standard. Even as a homeowner or a renter, you want an efficient building that doesn't cost you an absolute fortune to heat in the winter,
Well, I think, don't quote me for these verbatim, but I think the actual stat in the UK at the moment is that there's about 90% of the property or commercial property in the UK was built prior to 2000.
Wow.
And if you think prior to where the regulations were on energy efficiency back then is nowhere near the standard it's at now. And the government are actually in consultation at the moment to review how energy performance certificates, EPCs, are calculated, because the issue you have, and the issue we come across a lot of the time, is that it's easier to get a higher EPC rating on a new build property than it is to retrofit and increase the energy performance of an existing building. But if you then think about the carbon output of building a new to retaining existing and repurposing existing asset, is completely offset with the regulations. So there's a lot of movement in the industry around retrofit and around the suitability of the current regulations. So that's going to be a really interesting space. But because in the industry, the biggest commercial property market has had its issues since COVID in terms of occupancy rates, working from home, the rise of flexible working, everything like that, there's a lot more office buildings becoming vacant or not usable nowadays. Like the big 80 office towers that were built, the call center kind of set up, massive deep floor plates, no natural light, poor ventilation, all that kind of stuff. The only real opportunity now for asset managers to look at alternative uses like residential. And then you're kind of looking into, okay, well, if it's going to be residential, it has to be a certain quality EPC. So it's a constant battle for asset managers and occupiers. And I think what the solution is, I don't know, but there is definitely a lot of disruption in that space. So it's quite interesting. It's interesting times. But in terms of the other businesses you're working with, is there any other similar businesses to us in terms of professional consulting in the surveying and construction industry, or is it?
I haven't worked with as many, which is interesting because I come from, my degree is civil engineering, so that's something I know really well. But I haven't had as many inquiries in that space. A little bit more recently, but yeah, a lot more sort of marketing and comms. There's been a bit of facilities, so kind of in that space, depending on how far they go on the facility side of things. But yeah, I definitely just don't get as many inquiries in this space.
Which is intriguing, really. Yeah. It's really, because you would have thought, like we've said, it's a huge impact on the carbon output of the country. So I mentioned our journey's been 18 months plus long. Obviously, we've been through a lot as a business in that time. We've rebranded to be much more aligned with the kind of our mission to be a challenger and a disruptor, and our actual strapline as a business now is to challenge a traditional industry to build a better world. So part of that was aligning with the B Corp and our ESG strategy. But in terms of cast your mind back to when we first engaged with you, it was a long time ago, so I won't ask for many details, but how have you found working with HORDE, and kind of what were the challenges in kind of getting us into a B Corp accredited space?
Every business journey is so different. So one of the most common questions I get asked is, how long does it take? And I actually track it, and I can see how different it is for different businesses. As you say, there was a lot of change going on with HORDE at the time. People disappearing on mat leave who were very, very involved in the process at the time, which is great. They were looked after. But also, because there's not as many businesses in this space, you kind of mentioned that our track did change. So we were kind of given guidance in one space and then changed halfway through, which had a real impact on your points. And also we had to then we were a little bit on the back foot with gathering evidence, and it can happen. So sometimes it's a really streamlined process of verification, and other times it's not. And I think also with a small team, if you think about some of these larger corporations, they've probably got a whole sustainability team dedicated to this, where everybody's got a day job and you're a smaller company. Yes, it's easy to pivot on policies and, then a big corporation. But actually, when everybody's busy and you're growing, it's really tricky to kind of have the time to sit down and go, okay, where do I get that data from? Who do I need to speak to? If somebody's out of the office for 2 weeks, how do we juggle that? So, there's different ways where it's more challenging for an SME.
It was really insightful, actually, some of the stuff that we had to, the evidence we had to provide to B Corp around kind of, okay, well, give examples of the projects or instructions you've been involved with which have had a economic, social or environmental positive impact. And it actually makes you think when you're going back through your clients of who is purpose-led, what impact have you actually made? And it's quite refreshing to actually think, okay, yeah, no, because you don't always think about that when you're in the, and most of the team will kind of agree that when you're in the weeds and you're delivering work and you're looking after your clients and making sure everything's cost effective, but there's a bigger picture and you don't realize the impact you're making. So it's quite interesting going through those spreadsheets and seeing all of that stuff, and the amount of, and you always forget the amount of clients that you work for that are purpose focused or social or doing good for the social environment. Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant. And I think that's something that B Corp encourages. Yes, you're always going to be tracking financial metrics, but what are the social ones you want to be looking at, or the environmental ones you want to be looking at? And I think it's easy to forget about those ones. And also that means you don't talk about them as much. So when you're, communicating on new project bids or with existing clients, you can then, having done that for the B Corp process, and, you'll do it annually for impact reports as well, you've got those numbers, you can track those metrics in the same way that you would any other. And it makes it really powerful, rather than ESG being this sort of fluffy side thing that goes alongside your business strategy. You can really embed it in what you're doing. And I think that's really powerful.
And I think it's going to make us think a lot moving forward of what clients we want to be aligned with, what clients we want to be working with. Because I think there was something that got flagged in our assessment, that we worked for and one of our good clients was actually a pharmaceutical company when we first started out, but then the pharmaceutical industry flagged as a bit of a red flag, I suppose is the right term for B Corp, and then we had to provide additional evidence and how actually our client in that case was actually doing positive social and economic things in that space. But again, it's going to make us really think about what spaces we should actually think about. Do we want to be aligned with those clients and delivering that kind of work?
Yeah, it's a relatively newer thing that B Lab has introduced around what they call clients in controversial industries. So there's been a couple of cases where clients, for example, fossil fuel companies, there was a comms agency that took on a contract with Shell, and as a result were told, well, actually this doesn't align with what B Corp stand for. So when we talk about a holistic view, it is very much, who are you working with? What are you, the impact that you're having is being amplified through the clients you work with. So what does that look like? And I think it does kind of make you question, okay, what is right for us? And what do we need to be thinking about when we take on a new client?
Definitely. And just going back to, you mentioned Amy, who was our marketing manager, who's on maternity leave, and she was leading the B Corp journey for us. Funnily enough, as part of the journey, we enhanced our maternity policy. So that was one of the big, the really influential changes we managed to make, which was giving 3 months full pay, 3 months half pay. But yeah, that's just a good example of some of the policies we've had to change for the workers element, the team element, to get that score high. And we are lucky in our industry and qualifications, and most of the surveyors are above living wage, and we managed to pick up points there. But I think being able to look at the other additional benefits you can give, i.e. like we have an EV salary sacrifice scheme for EV cars, and we have other enhanced benefits as well that we'll be rolling out and looking to enhance as we grow. So that stuff's all really interesting, and I think that is where our USP really sits as an employer branding, because all the talk of AI and disruption, and there's not going to be any workers left. My view is that that's never really going to happen. Well, not in the next 5 to 10 years, at least. That there's always going to be a need for good quality professional advice, and I think that AI is a tool that people will use to help get over the line and make it more efficient. But I think it's definitely we're not going anywhere as surveyors or professional consultants. But are you, just bringing that up, are you seeing any? How did B Corp look at the whole AI and tech play? Is there any sort of red flags there or any trends?
At the moment, they haven't introduced anything. So even historically, the B impact assessment was updated every 3 years. It's now due for its biggest update since its inception. So as of next year, there will be a completely new standard. I would be very surprised if there was nothing about AI in there. At the moment, they haven't kind of flagged anything specifically. The new standards will be out in April, so next month, and that will be the finalised standards. They've done a good 2-3 years consultation. And there's a lot of different things coming through that perhaps the current version is light on, like equity, diversity and inclusion, a lot more about kind of tracking emissions and looking at net zero targets. So yeah, I'd be very surprised if there's not an element related to AI, because things change so quickly, and the sustainability landscape is constantly changing. So to be a valid and powerful certification, it's got to keep moving and kind of keep factoring in some of these challenges.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely a space to watch, I imagine. Well, across all industries, not just B Corp specific. But look, that nicely links into the future then, and what we and what we're looking to do, and I suppose what B Corp holds for us in the future. Obviously, working with me for 18 and us for 18 months, we are very growth focused, and we want to continue to grow our business and develop our service offerings in the space and really cement ourselves as a real challenger and a threat really to the bigger corporate businesses. So that's quite exciting. But do you have any tips for us of how we can kind of, as we grow as a business, how we can continue to improve our impact score as we grow?
Yeah, so bear in mind the scoring is disappearing with the new standard, so it's going to look a little bit different from that perspective. I think we touched on this a little bit. In the same way that you'll set financial growth goals, start to look at some of the social and environmental ones that you can be setting as well. I think without kind of embedding that into, so when you're doing your regular, board meetings or management meetings, that you're kind of checking in with all of this stuff as it goes. Whatever the new standard looks like, I generally encourage businesses to rescore themselves. So you only go through this full verification and certification every 3 years, but you kind of commit to writing an impact report. And that's about setting these targets and kind of talking through how did it go, because we don't always hit the targets we've set, and that's fine, but kind of understanding what happened and why we didn't get there and tweaking them is really, really important. But I think the key for me is how you really embed it in those decisions. So every decision you're making in your business, you're going, well, how does that impact some of those social and environmental targets, and building it in so it's not an afterthought, it's really embedded in what you're doing.
And that will really help when we come to renew in 3 years' time. That we've kind of already done all the hard work, the legwork, and we're making a positive change, and we can demonstrate that when it comes to renewal time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Nancy, thank you very much for coming in. It's great to see you again, and thank you again for all your help and support throughout this process. And we look forward to working with you in the future. And where can people find you if they want to find you on socials or reach out to you?
Best one is LinkedIn for me. So Nancy Hyne, Hyne. Otherwise, get in touch with Alex. He can point you in the right direction. But honestly, it's been a pleasure working with the team at HORDE. And actually, it's really nice for me, less so for you guys that it took so long, but I actually get to really get under the skin of your business. And I never take that for granted. It's a real privilege for me to be able to kind of see what businesses are up to. And it makes me more hopeful for the future that people actually care, because I think sometimes we get a bit buried in the negative noise, and it's not as bad as we all think. There is definitely positive work going on.
Just don't watch the news and you'll be fine.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, thanks very much, Nancy.